Good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight, and hello to our distinguished guests as well. Narelle Graham is my name. I work for ABC Local Radio in Renmark. Welcome to the Knowing the Facts About ICE Community Forum. The plan for tonight is to arm you with some information about ICE. You'll hear from some guest speakers from SAPOL and from local GP George Dalamarcus from the Berry Medical Clinic. He's presenting in the place of Dasa, who had to pull out for family reasons just yesterday, and so he's stepping up to take on that presentation, and thank you very much, Dr. George. You'll also hear some stories of some survivors who have used ICE. Also, there'll be a chance for you to ask some questions of an expert panel that we'll bring out later on. I'll ask you to please save your questions until the panel. If you don't feel comfortable about standing up and asking a question, you can text it through. The text number, this is the only time you'll be able to use your phone in the Chafey Theatre, make the most of it, 0467 922 783. You can tweet them if you prefer using the hashtag RivIceForum, or you can put them on the ABC Riverland Facebook page. The forum is also being streamed live online at abc.net.au. So we'll also have some roving microphones if you'd prefer to ask your question from the floor, but just so that we can avoid a little bit of that, excuse me, as we try and get the mic to you, we've only got one on a boom. If I could ask you to perhaps, try and make your way towards the edges and make it a little bit easy for us to get that microphone to you. Before we get any further, I'd like to hand over to Aaron MacArthur from Life Without Barriers for the acknowledgement of country.
Hello, my name's Aaron. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodial, the first people of the River Murray, and pay our respects to our elders, past and present, and the future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hopes of Aboriginal people. The culture and hopes of Aboriginals. Australia as the oldest living culture on earth. We must always remember that under the concrete and asphalt, this land was always will be traditional Aboriginal land. Thank you for the land that we share. Now let's reconcile, walk together in harmony in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Tonight we're all here to learn more about the drug ICE, and the fact that we're holding this forum isn't a sign that the ICE problem is any greater here in the Riverland than it is anywhere else. But it is a sign that as a community we want to be proactive about it. Some of you might know very little. Some of you might already know more than you ever wanted to know, and I'm sure we'll all learn something. Shortly we'll hear from our guest speakers from SAPOL, but during the night you'll hear some of the thoughts from a couple of survivors who used to use ICE and now they don't. This is what they want you to know about their experience. They chose to speak because they want to help other people. And there is, I think, that mystery, that concern about how people come into contact with drugs. And that's where I'd like to start with our survivors' stories. And these are the stories of Lola and Riley. That's not their real names. Lola was about 18 when she first tried ICE. She was living in Darwin and she was living away from home. Riley, on the other hand, was 14 when he first tried it. He was in Adelaide and he was living at home. Thank you, Paul.
Ended up coming home one day from work and sitting there and I'm going, okay, what are you guys doing? And that's when I first ever saw it ever in my life in the bag. And I was like, okay. And they're like, do you want to try it? I'm like, no, I don't want to try it. And then I smelt it and I was like, this is an unusual smell. And they're like, just try some. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And they told me that it gives you a bit of a hype and it makes you want to go. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll try some. And I tried some and then it was like, oh, I really like this, because I went from being really ugh to like, yay. So I kept doing it, and then it was just after that, it was like something that took over you. Yeah. And it was just something that just you know, made you happy. So
And how much did you know about it at that time?
nothing.
Yeah.
All I got told was it was ice, and then I found out it was ice mixed with speed. So it was two intense things mixed into one. So I was quite overtaken, or just it drew me in. It was something that I could put in my life that just made me feel better about myself. Rather than me feeling better about myself, it was, you know, something that made me feel better.
Well, my old man just gave me this bag of meth in it and goes, "Here you have that, I don't need it, I've had too much."
Wow. Okay.
I don't know.
So was that the first drug
That's the first.
you'd ever
I've smoked weed before and that.
When did you start smoking weed?
About 11 or 12.
Okay. And did that come from your parents too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the idea in him giving you the drugs when you were 14?
I think because he knew that we'd seen a lot already and we were like interested, or we knew about it, and he was afraid that we were gonna leave him, like just go out and get on the drugs, get on the meth, and then not come home. Okay. So he wanted us to be at home in the safe environment, sort of thing, doing it. But in a way, it could have also been a control thing.
Did you know anything about what he was giving you at that stage?
I just knew it was like some sort of party drug. Like I know it must have been something that made you feel good.
Yeah. Because your parents had used it?
Yeah.
You'd seen them use it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Had you been curious to try it?
A little bit, but not massively.
I ended up coming home one day from work and sitting there and I'm going, okay, what are you guys doing? And that's when I first ever saw it ever.
Thank you. We'll hear more of those stories a little bit later on, how the drug affected their lives and how they got off it, and also their take-home message. Now I'd like to hand over to the first of our presenters from SAPOL's Serious and Organised Crime Branch. We have Detective Brevet Sergeant David Fay. Thanks, David.
G'day folks, just let me add my welcome and say thank you for coming. Drug use is a huge problem for police and for the community, so it is encouraging to see so many people here today. As a bit of a background on where I'm presenting from, I'm one of the detectives at the Drug and Organised Crime Task Force of SAPOL, so I'm one of the ones out there on the front line, as it were, trying to find drug traffickers, find drug labs and take them apart. So what I'd like to touch on today is what methamphetamine is, how we measure meth use and seizures, things that you can look out for in the community to identify clandestine drug labs, the use of methamphetamine, and an example of a successful drug operation we've done. So we start out with what is methamphetamine. Amphetamines in general are a stimulant drug, first synthesised in 1887 in Germany. In 1919, the Japanese first synthesised methamphetamine hydrochloride, which is what we know it today. Meth was actually given to soldiers in World War II to keep them alert, particularly the pilots. Following World War II, it was marketed as an obesity pill until the negative qualities of the drug became known and its addictive qualities, and then many jurisdictions started making it illegal. We see three main types of meth, which are powders, pastes and crystals. Ice, which is the drug we're talking about tonight, is a very strong crystalline form of methamphetamine, usually over 75 to 80% purity. Paste is a bit less pure, and powder generally between 10 and 40%, very low street level purity. SAPOL has a number of ways of measuring meth use in the community, which includes data from drug arrests, reports and seizures, results from the forensic analysis at the Forensic Science Centre, driver roadside drug testing and wastewater analysis. For example, drug diversions are where a person is diverted away from the court system to attend drug counselling, which would be for personal use meth possession. We can see since 2009 there's been a steady increase in the amount of personal use offences detected. Similarly, we can see that meth use is increasing in roadside drug testing, while drugs such as ecstasy have been relatively static. Also, we see that arrests for meth possession would most likely be for trafficking for larger quantities of the drug. We can again see that trafficking offences and arrests have been on the rise since about 2009. Wastewater analysis has been taking place for several years now, and it involves taking samples from sewage facilities around the metro area. This really provides us our best idea yet of the amount of drugs being used in the community. And we can see that since about 2012, meth use has been on the rise. And finally, the Forensic Science Centre in the city are responsible for analysing all of our meth seizures. We can see since 2010 to 11, predominantly powders were seized. 11 to 12, we see more of a spread of powders, pastes and crystals. Again, we can see it starting to get more towards the crystal seizures. And 2013-14, we can see a clear swing towards ice or crystals being the predominant form of drugs seized. So, although the consumption of meth is rising, we found the number of clan labs that manufacture meth have been somewhat static. We account that to the rise in importations of methamphetamine over the internet, and we've got less small, what we call mum and pop or personal use labs being detected, but we're starting to see more large-scale commercial clandestine laboratories. An example of this is February 2014, a large commercial clan lab and ecstasy pressing operation were found in a shack on the river at Walker Flat. This should serve as a reminder that organised crime groups are increasingly using country locations to manufacture controlled drugs. The Walker Flat lab resulted in the seizure of 140,000 ecstasy tablets, 60 kilograms of ecstasy powder, and sufficient chemicals in this industrial size equipment to manufacture multi-kilogram quantities of meth. What I'd like to do is show a few examples of clan labs that we've found in Adelaide and some commonly used items that are involved in manufacturing meth that you should be aware of. Have a quick look at these images of a professional pharmaceutical company and then compare them to what you're about to see. You're going to see that clandestine drug labs are vastly different to a professional pharmaceutical company. There is no quality control at all, and yet some people are very willing to inject, smoke or ingest the products coming out of them. So this is very indicative of the messy state that we'll find most clan labs. Clandestine labs require a heat source, so they may be located in kitchens of homes, or they may use a different heat source, such as a camp stove or a heating mantle. A water source is also necessary. So again, we may see a clan lab in the kitchen or in a laundry of a house, or water may be pumped in with a water pump through a bucket or similar. Laboratory glassware is commonly found in illicit drug labs, and this will include items such as ram-bottom flasks or reaction vessels, glass condensers, beakers, measuring cylinders. Possession of many of these items is illegal just by themselves. Now, there are many different ways of manufacturing meth, so I don't want to confuse things, so I'll focus on methods that we commonly see here in South Australia. Things like iodine up the top left, which is a metallic prill, red phosphorus, which is a red thick powder, what's found on striker plates of matchboxes, pseudoephedrine, which is a white powder which is legitimately available in cold and flu medication, and hypophosphorus acid, which presents as a very viscous, thick, clear liquid. With these, many of them, possession is illegal if you have over a certain amount, usually over about 250 grams, and many of these chemicals are very acidic or carcinogenic. In addition to the illegal chemicals in glassware, manufacturing methamphetamine requires a number of legitimate chemicals, and these will be things such as methylated spirits, caustic soda, hydrochloric or sulfuric acids, acetone or toluene. All of these can be bought very easily at hardware stores or supermarkets, and if you're employed in that sort of business, it does pay to look out for people that are purchasing large quantities of these sort of chemicals. I think back to when I was growing up, and the age-old drug prevention talk was, you never know what's in meth, people put drain cleaner in it. And to a certain extent that's true, you don't know what is in drugs, but I can guarantee 100%, having seen meth made and processed in clan labs, you will find acids, caustic materials, and solvents in methamphetamine. Clandestine drug labs carry many dangers. one of which is that they create toxic gases when you combine the elements and heat them together, and the risks of heating solvents on a naked flame can cause explosions. This explosion occurred in Seaford in 2010 when the cook placed all his ingredients in an LPG cylinder and put that in the oven to accelerate the process. And you think, what can possibly go wrong? This is the laundry of the house, several rooms away from the kitchen, and that's the LPG cylinder that penetrated several walls. Luckily, the cook had left the house prior to this explosion. This fire occurred in Norwood in 2003 because the cook was heating solvents on a stovetop with a naked flame whilst trying to extract pseudoephedrine from pharmacy medication. As far as usage of methamphetamine or ice goes, these are some things that you can be aware of that are associated with the use of ice. If you see items like this in your home or in your workplace, it may signal to you that somebody you know is using methamphetamine and they may benefit from some help or intervention. So glass pipes are commonly used to smoke ice, and we'll see the red plastic straws commonly used to just load ice into the glass pipes. Small press seal plastic bags of pastes or crystals are what ice is commonly packaged in. And digital scales all these things can be indication that someone is either using or dealing in methamphetamines. Some of you would have seen there are some fake samples of drugs and glassware located at the display out the front, and if anyone has any interest in knowing what methamphetamine smells like or what items associated with a clan lab look like, I'd encourage you to go check it out on the way out. So as far as an operational example goes, I'll just explain my branch, the Drug and Organised Crime Task Force, are responsible for investigating drug-related offences at a high level that have state or national reach and is beyond capabilities of local police. So Operation Divulge was a 2-year-long investigation that was conducted between 2011 and 2013. It focused on the manufacture and trafficking of methamphetamine by members and associates of an outlaw motorcycle gang. Over the course of the 2-year investigation, we arrested 25 people and had seizures of 21 kilograms of meth, about half a kilogram of cocaine, 21,000 ecstasy tablets, over 7 litres of the drug Fantasy, 4 kilograms of pseudoephedrine, 2 firearms, and $500,000 cash. We identified a number of different sites which were all in rural areas where the syndicate was either manufacturing or storing large commercial quantities of methamphetamine. One successful raid that we did at Biberinga in the foothills of Adelaide in 2012 was confirmed by the wastewater analysis that I spoke about earlier. The analysis showed that immediately following the raid, meth use in Adelaide dropped by around 50%, which was a result that we had never measured before or have been able to measure since. So in other words, the seizure of that lab resulted in 50% of Adelaide's meth users having to go without. Unfortunately, though, as you can see, meth use continued to climb over about 8 months, and it returned to even higher levels, which is just indicative of the huge problem that is drug use. This operation serves as a very real reminder that organised crime groups will use country areas to do their illegal activity. Their reasons for that are they think they're relatively safe in country areas, it's harder for police to detect them. So we really do ask for community help to be vigilant in this area, and if you see something, say something to someone. What I'd like to do now is pass over to the officer in charge of the Drug Task Force, Chief Inspector Cramery, who is going to talk about the wider role of South Australia Police in targeting ICE. Thank you.
Thank you to David there. And I just want to remind you quickly, we're already getting some questions through. We'll certainly put them to the panel, that the text number, if you want to send through a question via the text line, and you can do that from the auditorium, is 0467922783. You can also tweet them using the hashtag RivIceForum, all one word, or you can put them onto the ABC Riverland Facebook page. I'd like to introduce to you now Detective Chief Inspector Tony Cramery, who is going to give our next presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your support in coming tonight. This is a very important issue, and it's important that as a community you learn about this issue. I'm the officer in charge of the Drug and Organised Crime Task Force, and my role is to oversee investigations that they are conducted professionally and within the rules of the legislation and the courts. SAPOL involves itself in a wide range of activities to reduce the supply and harm associated with controlled drugs, including methamphetamine. Serious and Organised Crime Branch is primarily responsible for enforcement and investigation of the top levels of organised crime. We also are responsible for the processing of clandestine drug laboratories and working with local police to detect dealing and the manufacture of illicit drugs. SAPOL is actively involved with other agencies, namely the Australian Federal Police, Australian Border Force, Australian Crime Commission, Interstate Police Services, International Policing Services, and other government and non-government organisations. We are well resourced. We have many dedicated men and women who make significant sacrifices to investigate the illicit drug trade. SAPOL, in addressing the illicit drug trade, use a number of strategies to target not only the use, but the dealing and manufacturing of amphetamine-type stimulants, and this is including ice. These strategies include Operation Mantle. These police officers target street-level to mid-level trafficking, and they prioritise meth investigations. Drug driver testing. There is an emphasis on road safety and identifying users under the influence of cannabis, meth or ecstasy. Drug diversions, which diverts people detected by police for simple possession drug offences to health intervention services. This is instead of putting them through the criminal justice system. However, if they fail to comply with the requirement of the health intervention, they are returned to the criminal justice system. There is also clan lab remediation. This is a function that falls to both police and the council. These areas are toxic and they have to be cleaned up. Often there are children that are still living in the environment, and any of the toys or clothing may be infected or touched by the toxic substances. Also, we have the access to the drug transit routes legislation, where police are able to target vehicles and roads that are used by people dealing and transporting drugs. Further strategies, and very important ones, are community engagement. This is important not only in terms of awareness, but a large percentage of information that we act upon is derived from community sources. Legislative review. We have some of the best legislation in Australia, which includes offences for possessing equipment used to manufacture methamphetamine and analogue drugs. These drugs are constantly evolving. Review also takes place as new drugs are detected to ensure that they are scheduled and prohibited where appropriate. We also have Project Stop. This is run by the Pharmacy Guild of Australia. This is an online tool where pharmacists can use this to help them decide whether they should sell pseudoephedrine medication to people that wish to purchase it. They ask for identification, so these are recorded on the database. It checks previous purchases made by the person. It decides whether they should supply the pseudoephedrine to the customer, and the information is beamed to law enforcement to assist with tracking pseudo shoppers, which is extremely important for us. We also have end user declarations. This is a requirement for the sale of precursor chemicals which can be used to manufacture illicit drugs. This information records who purchased the chemicals, for what reason the chemicals were purchased, and identification is required from the person purchasing the chemicals. And finally, we have the Chemical Diversion Desk. This monitors the sale of precursor chemicals that can be diverted into the manufacture of drugs. So we have lots of strategies that we currently have in place that we monitor what is going on behind the scenes, and we were able to act upon those. Importantly, no one in the community is immune from knowing someone who is involved in the drug trade. This is more so in the country areas due to the strong community networks that you have. It's harder to hide. Drug trade affects family, friends, associates, and others within the wider community. Think about the people that you know. As you sit here today or listen today, you will probably know or think of someone in the community that is affected by drugs. What is the illicit drug trade about? Is it about having a good time? No. Are dealers there to help you because they like you? No. Do users want to be part of the scene and not feel out of the group or away from your peers? No. Be no doubt that the illicit drug trade is about one thing only. That is profit. When we talk about profit, it is like any other business. For the manufacturers and suppliers of drugs, including the ice, it is about how can they make more customers use their drugs. They may give it to you on the tick or give it to you for free just to try. They may say to you, pay me back later when you've got some money. Be mindful, there is always a cost and you have to repay back the debt at some point. With the cost to the community, on average, a street deal of ice is about $100. It can vary depending on the what percentage, what quality. But what can it lead to? You could become a victim of crime because you're dealing with the drug trade. You can be assaulted. You can be robbed. Your house can be broken into because people believe that either you have drugs or money stored at your house. Extortion. As an example, if you have a debt, say of $5,000, you may have a $20,000 car. You have to sign over the $20,000 car to cover the debt. They don't give you the $15,000 back. It may not be your car, but you are forced to sign it over or get your friends or relatives to hand over their vehicle. These are true crimes that have been reported to us. It puts your family, neighbours and community at risk. Also, people who use drugs or deal in drugs may commit other crimes to support their habit. They may start dealing drugs themselves. They may start committing assaults. They may start stealing or committing frauds. They may become involved in prostitution, not only for money, but for drugs. And also, there's domestic violence. Your behaviour as a user results in the possible loss of family and friends due to your change in behaviour. You become not a nice person to be around. Some of you people here tonight will know people that I'm talking about. They used to be funny, enjoyable people to be around, and now they're not. You see them, you don't want to be near them because they are trouble. Their behaviour is erratic. Other talkers tonight will talk about the issues of health and how the effects of ice. What can you do? As a community, one of the first things is this community engagement, knowing about the problem, talking about it, talking with your family, talking with your children, talking with cousins. There is options. If you have any information, Crime Stoppers is available for those who have information that might assist in an investigation. You might be aware of a house that has strange smells, or you see people coming and going strange hours of the night. They only stay for a short period of time. It is unusual. You know what goes on within your community. You know that is not right what's happening at that house. You have some suspicions. Obviously, you can speak to your local police. But if you don't want to do that, we have Crime Stoppers available. It is free. It is secure. You can remain anonymous. You can provide the information online or make a phone call on 1800 333 000. The phone number is there up on the screen, as well as the website. The Crime Stopper police officers have the capacity to assess the information and direct it to the most appropriate area for investigation. So employ for you people, if you have any information, contact us. It's without us as a community being able to work on this problem, we won't be able to deal with the problems that we have. And hopefully we'll be able to save some of the people and put them on the right track so they become well respected within the community. So thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate all your time and effort, and I'd like to thank the people for organising this event. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to Detective Chief Inspector Tony Cremieri there, and you'll get a chance to ask some questions of the police during our Q&A session a little bit later on. Before our next guest speaker, a little more from our survivors' stories. This is, I think, Riley and then Lola describing how the drug drew them in and then started to take over their lives.
I just felt really good, and then when I started to come down, I just wanted more. I felt like I needed that. I felt like it was like what I needed to make me feel better in life. When I come down, I was just really angry, and then because I was working at the time, I was just stayed in that mood until I got paid, and then I got my dad to buy me some more, and he brought me like a whole heap of it, and then so I could sell a little bit and make my money back. Yep. And use it, and yeah, that's just when it started. I've done every weekend for 5 years, just spending more money on it.
Were you able to do your work as well? Did it affect the work you were able to do?
Not really, but like I remember like the first couple of times like where I'd stayed up all night and I was coming down and I just wanted to sleep, but my dad's like, no, you gotta come to work, and it's like I had to work the next day again, so it's like 2 days in a row like working like doing hard labour, and then eventually like you sort of, it gets out of your system and you just go to sleep that night. But I did slowly progress to like during the week as well. Like after 5 years I didn't save any money, I wasn't getting anywhere in life, and I wanted to go out to school, but then I'd stopped working. I didn't go back to school because of the people that I got involved with, like while I was using the drugs while I was working. I don't know, like, because I'd have to go and get on the drugs because that had become a way of life. I just never went to the school, and I eventually got on Centrelink, and I'd just use the Centrelink money, but I'd go out and with my mates and that who had never worked and watch them do crime. So that's how I learned to do crime, but going out with them just for something to do and just watching them. Yeah. And just going along for the experience, and then I learned how to do it. But I didn't like breaking into houses and doing like robbing people. So I just, because I did demolition, I knew that scrap metal was worth money, so I was just stealing copper.
Was that mainly so that you could pay for drugs?
Yeah.
And to live
and
as
to live,
well?
Yeah.
You were still at home at that time?
Yeah.
Okay, and what was home life like at that time?
Pretty shit. Like, I remember like there was times where like we'd have no food, no nothing, and then I'd just be lying in bed all day and my old man would be like, get up and do something. I'd be like, I don't want to because there's no food, like I'm starving, and and I'd just lie in bed and I'd wait till the end of the day, and I'd be like, bloody hell, the shopping centre's going to close soon. And then I'd just walk up to the shopping centre quickly and like steal a chicken or something, and I'd go home and then like I've got some food, like just waiting until payday.
The bad thing about it was, as soon as you took it, it always made you feel like you were coming down, but you weren't. You were still on that high, so you'd take more and then you feel better. But there is a certain point you can do before it starts overtaking you completely. Like, you get to a certain point and then it kicks in and your adrenaline goes up, you know, you're overactive, and you don't sleep on it either. You could go days without sleeping, you don't eat, so it really took me over. And when I started taking it, I lost weight, so that made me want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I went from about 74 kilos down to, 65 in about 2-3 weeks. I was like, I'll keep doing this is awesome.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise the repercussions it had on my body. It was basically destroying my insides.
You mentioned the smell. What did it smell like? Because it sounds like, the way you describe it, it sounds like that was quite enticing.
Well, obviously with marijuana, it's got that real green smell to it, and everyone's like, "Ooh, someone's having fun." They make that joke. But when you smell this, it's just, I don't know, it does the same thing it does to you when you smoke it. It gives you that little bit of a, oh, okay then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you come across it now, like if you smell it,
It's not good.
what does that do?
Because when you've taken it, your body goes into, like, it starts getting faster and faster, obviously, because your body just wants to go. So if you're not moving, your leg shakes, or you grind your teeth, or you move your hands a lot, or you lick your lips a lot, or you do all that kind of stuff to make sure your body's moving. When I smell it now, I'll start licking my lips and stuff. It's just a mental thing. It's literally gone straight to the brain.
Brained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I was thinking about was going to work, coming home and having it again. I'd go to work on it and you'd be like, Mum would say to me, can you go do this, this and this? And all of a sudden I'd be like,
Oh, yeah, I can
flash
get that done.
around the office,
Yeah.
And she would say to me, oh, you've done really well at work today. I'm really, happy about it and all that stuff. So I thought, I'd go home, take some more and I'd do the same the next day. And she'd be really happy with me. So I thought, yeah, I'm achieving something, keep taking it. I'm going to do really, really well. But then I realised it wasn't the best. I should have just got off my butt and just worked properly rather than getting something to help me. I remember being this, vibrant, happy person who, cried at Disney movies and stuff, all that kind of stuff. And once I got, go out and do things and be active, and once I got on it, it was just, I didn't want to leave because I wanted more, and I just turned into an unhappy person, Movies weren't fun to me anymore, and it was just like, yeah, whatever, I'm over that now, sort of thing. And it was just like, oh, no, I don't want that crap, I want this.
I just started.
Yeah, there's more of those videos still to come. I think that probably maybe has answered some of the questions that we've been getting through on the text line as well, about some people are asking about the signs to look for. Perhaps that tackles some of those questions. Certainly more to come on that front. I'll hand over to the second of our guest speakers now, Riverland GP Dr George Dalamarcus, who is presenting on behalf of DASA. Thanks, George.
Thank you very much, Narelle. Good evening, everyone. My name is George Dalamangas. I'm one of the GP obstetricians at Berry Medical Clinic. And I'm actually very happy tonight to see the theatre full. That tells me quite a bit. It's encouraging to see people from all different age groups here, and that tells us that people care in our community. People care about people that take drugs, and especially ice. I want to thank Chrissy Eleftheriadis specifically for asking me to be a part of this talk tonight. Thank you, Chrissy, for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this project. It's obviously, drug use and especially ice is something that is affecting our community. I will speak about a few things about ice that other speakers have already covered, but it's good to just have a general review and understanding of what's going on. So, ice is, can come in different forms, as previous speakers have discussed. It's called it's a crystal methamphetamine. It was firstly introduced, actually made from a Japanese chemist in 1897. So it's been around for 120 odd years, and it has been used in World War II in helping soldiers and especially pilots being awake. It has been used in the past as a drug to help people lose weight. The methamphetamine and dexamphetamine have been used in ADHD, attention deficit disorder, in recent times. It's a drug that's a stimulant, and it speeds up messages in your central nervous system by changing the amounts of certain chemicals in the brain. And the three basic chemicals that it affects is the dopamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline. As you can see, there's three types of methamphetamines. Ice is the most pure type, as previous speakers have said tonight. Base and speed. And if you look at the curve there, you can see that the intensity of ice is higher than base and speed, and it gives you a higher intensity. But then, and we'll speak about that down the track. The downside, like after you take ice, the downside of it is deeper, is higher, deeper than base and speed. It's made of different substances that we can find in products in everyday life, and that is actually quite serious. Why? Because the ice that's made in these labs is not sterile. It can be full of bacteria, and I guess that doesn't matter that much if you snort it or smoke it, but if you inject it, obviously you're inserting bacteria into your bloodstream and causing a potential lethal condition called bacteremia that can be deadly. So historically prescribed for stamina, alertness, weight loss, and concentration. Today, recreationally, people use it to feel good, to get a high, to be accepted by peers. It is readily available and it's cheap. That's one of the other issues So you can swallow it, you can snort it, smoke it, and inject it. Obviously, snorting and swallowing has a larger time, like a prolonged time of effect compared to snorting or injecting. And that's an example of a pipe that people use to smoke it. So the basic hormones that are affected with ice use is dopamine and serotonin and noradrenaline, which is the stress hormone. Serotonin controls our sleep, our mood, temperature and blood pressure, and dopamine controls the way we think and feel and move. So when someone takes ice, basically the reserves that are in your brain of these hormones get released into your brain, into your whole system, and that gives you that euphoric feel. But if you continue taking it, all the levels of these drugs in the reserves you have actually diminish, and that's when you get that low mood after you take it. So noradrenaline is the stress hormone that causes us to have fear. When we have fear, to increase our blood pressure, increase our heart rate, our pupils dilate, our airways open to get more oxygen, and we're more alert and we're ready to combat. Now, why ice is so addictive? This chart actually shows that ice is about 3.5 to 4 times more intense than cocaine in increasing the dopamine levels and giving that euphoric state to the person that uses it. So when all these chemicals are overflushed, it leaves you with a feeling of being down and feeling very unwell and taking a long time to recover. So, physical effects of ice in smaller and larger doses, as you can see, will increase your heart rate, dilate your pupils, you can have dry mouth, moist skin, and in larger doses you can have a rapid, even an irregular heartbeat that can lead to sudden death. Chest tightness, headaches, dizziness, blurred vision, tremor and increased temperature. So psychological effects of the drug. Initially they increase your self-confidence, you feel invisible, they can make you a bit anxious. But in larger doses, they can lead to psychotic episodes, hallucinations, anxiety, panic attacks, even suicidal ideation. Talking about behaviour in ice, in smaller doses, they can make you alert, more energetic, increase your libido, but in larger doses, and that's something very serious, they can make you restless, aggressive, and obsessive. So, how do you know that if someone is taking ice, or any drug, I guess? There are some things you can notice in behavioural like changes. They become erratic, they have a negative interaction with their peers, they lose weight without dieting, they become more aggressive and take things more serious than they are. So dependency of the drug, they need to use more to get the same effects, and that increases the tolerance of the drug. People can get a stronger urge, a desire to use, and that's in the form of the cravings they have. They feel physically and emotionally unwell when they don't use, and that's where the withdrawal symptoms come in. They spend a lot of time trying to get to the drug, and a lot of time to recover after they don't take it. Long-term harms, obviously to the personal health of the person that is taking the drug, like teeth decay, sleeping problems, malnutrition, lowering your immunity system and taking longer to recover from illnesses, depression, mood swings, but also to the relationships we have with other people. Is either that's our brother, sister, wife, husband, or colleague at work. If you suspect that someone has had an overdose from ice, symptoms can be confusion, severe headache, chest pain, difficulty breathing, seizures, and you need to call the ambulance, I guess, straight away, or for help. People on ice can become psychotic, especially in long-term use, and they can have illusions, hallucinations, unable to tell what is real and not real. And these are signs, early signs of psychosis that people around a person that's taking drugs can act as clues to understand what's going on. It's very important not to criticise and be judgmental about someone that is on ice or any drug, because what will happen is it's just going to come back as a boomerang and you're just going to push them away. What we need to do as a community is to try and help people that are on ice to come closer to help. Either that's SA Pol or their mother, their father, their daughter, their brother, their doctor. It's not a stigma, it's something that affects the whole community. And that's why there's a lot of different representatives from different sectors today here, because it does affect the whole community. So when someone has had a session of ice, it usually takes 3 days to recover from that session, and usually initially the recovery time will get longer as people prolong their use. The recovery will consist of prolonged sleep periods, increased appetite, irritability, and increased thoughts of suicide. Withdrawing and stopping completely the drug, and that, in my opinion, can only be done with help, medical help, can take a long time, and is a long process, but there is help, and we need to get that message out there. We all try, and we are getting better at it, I guess, but we should give hope to the people that are on ice, because they are trapped, and we have to try and approach them as best as possible. So if you're worried about someone, and that's what we're doing today, we're being informed, we have to keep our emotions in check, discuss issues openly, and get advice from a professional. Now, someone that is addicted to a substance is not always ready to make changes. Later on, that if people discuss in a non-judgmental manner this with him, they might start contemplating it and slowly acting on it as a team, as a multidisciplinary team that involves family members. It could involve family members, social workers, psychologists, doctors, police. So, because it affects the whole community, there is a really big role of ICE education about ICE. It could be our children that are taking it. It could be a colleague at work, one of our peers that we play soccer with or football. So community response is the best approach. Families, parents, learning helps people know what to expect, and planning, preparing for potential challenges and emergencies. Services that are available: the Aboriginal Sobriety Group, Aboriginal Community Connect, Family Drug Support with the helpline, Drug and Alcohol Services of South Australia, Life Without Barriers, and Headspace in the Riverland. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope I shed some light in the drug ice and its use, and we're here to help as doctors, as Berry Medical Clinic, as the Riverland community, as community health, as SA Police, to try and reduce the use of ice in our community, reduce the impact it has on our families and society. Thank you.
Thank you to our Riverland GP, Dr. George Dalamagos, who is from the Berry Medical Clinic, and he did that presentation at the last minute. So he was called in when unfortunately DASA couldn't make it tonight. So just an absolutely sterling effort there. Your chance to ask questions in just a few minutes' time. Let's return to our survivors' stories to hear how they made the decision to change their lives. Riley's life changed in jail, and for Lola, there were a number of things going on, but both had to break ties with the people who had been a very big part of their lives. It wasn't easy. Lola had to get away from the aggression that was in the house that she was in, and eventually she moved from Darwin to South Australia to be near her dad, who has supported her. This is video 3.
I ended up looking at myself in the mirror, and I had completely gone grey. I was a disgusting grey colour.
Your skin?
Yeah, so I was thin, but I was a disgusting grey colour. And I went to the doctors and I said, look, this is what I've been doing. And they said, you need to get off it now. And they basically said if I'd kept going, my metabolism would have just been horrible. Like, to this day, sometimes I just can't bother eating and stuff like that. You know, it still has the repercussions afterwards, even though you've stopped it. So the reason why I first went to a doctor was I was sitting on a couch one day and sitting with my ex, and we got to a certain point where we kept doing it to the point where we were shaking, and I felt really sick, and I went to the toilet to, you know, do what I had to do, and apparently I slipped over and knocked myself out. Oh. And when I threw up, I actually threw up, but I was facing upwards, and luckily they got me in there and sort of got all the stuff out of my system, and that's when they took me to hospital, and they said, look, she's taken this, what do we do? And I said, oh, she's thrown up yet? And they said, yeah, but she sort of got it back on her. And they said, oh, she's still breathing, she seems okay, we'll see how she is. And by that time that I was in the hospital, by the time I was out, Mum had called me several times. It was lucky Dad didn't call me that day. It would be very upsetting. I was very ashamed of myself that day. I remember lying in the bed thinking, I just want to get out of here, you know, why are you doing this? And that was another thing to make you realise, you know, you're lying here because you've done this to yourself. No one's done it to you. No one, you know, held a gun to your head and said, you have to take this. This was your doing.
Was it a series of things that made you decide,
yeah,
I've got to change my life, I've got to change
definitely. And the fact that, you know, I really had nothing horrible in my life. Everything was fantastic. So I really had no reason to do it. Yeah. You know, I was just finding excuses to do it. You know, I had the best family support that anybody could ask for, you know. Even though my dad was 3,000 kilometres away, he would call me every day, say, hope you're having a great day, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was also that fact that I knew I was failing him too. I wasn't just failing myself, I was failing him. Because I said to him, I made a promise, I said, you know, I've done some stupid stuff in the past, like marijuana and stuff, but I'll never do anything too bad. And then I made him a promise, and then when I got onto it, I turned to myself and I said, you just broke your promise. And, you know, he's your rock, you know, what are you doing? And that's when I said to myself, you know, you need to get out of here. And that's when I moved back home. I just went, nah, if I'm here, I'm never going to get off it.
So at what point did you decide, I don't want to do this anymore?
I've been in and out of jail, like, I've been in jail about 4 or 5 times, like little bits here and there. And then this time, I think it's just like, I just had enough, like coming to jail, seeing all the people in jail, like they say this and they're going to change, they're going to do this and that. And even I wasn't doing it, I was saying that I was going to change, and I'd get out and I'd go to the dealer's house before I even got home. Like, and this time, like, because my mum just passed away and my pop was dying, like he passed away. And I've got 2 sisters that I want to connect like with and get to know as well, because I hardly know them. I just want to get somewhere in life. The judge asked me if I had been asked about them doing the Making Changes course before, and I said yes. And then she put it into my sentence plan that I had to do the Making Changes course. They teach you how to set goals, make plans, like they teach you about your triggers, and your fuels of like things that make you use and that, and they teach how to set barriers. I've gotten out this time, like I did the Make Change course, and I had all these things in place, and you also like write down like your successes like as well, like and you write down the things that you want to do, and you make sure that there's smart goals, like just like easy to maintain, like easy to achieve sort of thing. So I've never had my own house, my own place. I've got my own private rental now. I'm going to do the bridging course to get into university.
How long has it been since you used?
Probably about 2 years now.
Yeah.
So
that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's great.
But most of it was in jail, so I've already been out of jail for almost 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's still pretty good going, because you used to just go to the dealer's house on the way home.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and they have a final message for you, which we'll play at the end of the night as well. But to our guest panel, and if we could have the panellists who come out now, they're waiting very patiently in the wings. And very brave, thank you. So we have 3 members from SAPOL joining the panel, and I'll try and direct your questions where I think they should go. If you've got a particular place that you would like your questions to go, a particular person you would like to answer them, that's fine as well. Don't forget that you can text them through 0467 922 783, and we will try, we've got some roving mics as well. I think I can see some, there's one there. G'day. So if you do, just put your hand up, and if I can't see you because the lights are shining in my eyes, I'm sure that somebody near you will be able to get a microphone to you. So if I can just introduce our guest panel to you. This is your chance to ask questions of the experts. So on the panel tonight we have Detective Chief Inspector Tony Cromeri, right down the end. Detective Brevet Sergeant David Fay, and of course Superintendent James Blandford from SAPOL. James Blandford is the officer in charge of the Murray-Mallee local service area, so he is our local representative on the panel tonight. Also we have Dr Sarath Atanayaka, who is the, we've got, sorry, you swapped. There he is. So, of course, you know Dr George Dalamargas, who is next from the Berry Medical Clinic. You heard his presentation. Next to him is Dr Sarath Atanayaka, who is the resident psychiatrist for the Riverland Integrated Mental Health Service. And, of course, we have Ellie Wild here as well. Thank you, Ellie. The manager of the Murraylands Domestic Violence Service. So if you've got a question from the floor, if you can try and get towards the edge or something, that would be great. But we have had some questions through already. One of them is, if ice is so bad and it wrecks so many people's lives, why do people take it? I don't know that there would be anyone on the panel who could answer that question. It's a very personal sort of thing, but I know that it is troubling for a lot of people. So I'm going to move on to another one. I'm a parent of 2 teenage kids. What can I do to safeguard them from this drug? Is there anyone in particular that wants to take some advice or give some advice on that one?
I'll start.
Yeah, good on you, James Blandford. James Blandford.
What can you do to protect your children? Love them, be there for them, be a part of their lives, encourage them to be involved in the positive aspects of life, their education, their peers and their school friends, sport, community interaction, volunteering, get them out of the computer, off Facebook and iPads, and get them involved in life and be there for them. Talk to them about life, about experiences, about the good and the bad, and demonstrate and be good role models for your children. And at the end of the day, have an open door and love them unconditionally. They're going to make mistakes. They are going to get exposed to things that will make our generation cringe, just as our parents cringed when we were experiencing our lives. Some of them may come back and may make bad decisions, but at the end of the day, there's a much better hope of them coming back and actually having a positive life if there's a family that supports them, loves them, and is very clear with them about what is acceptable and what's not.
Thank you very much. Dr George, an SMS question through, what does ice do to the insides of the body?
Well,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
As we spoke in our previous presentation, ice will deplete the happy hormones from your brain and will cause you to have prolonged depression, suicidal ideation and psychosis. To the organs of the body, it mostly affects the kidneys, the renal system we call it, and can cause kidney failure. That's the most important.
Okay. Does Families SA, another one for SAPOL, get called in when a parent or parents are caught on ice, and what action is taken if they do get caught? The penalties?
Well, that's for Families SA. They make assessments and they can contact SAPOL and speak about issues, and then we can follow them up in relation to any criminality that may be occurring. Certainly, as a social issue, it's very important that as a community we are able to contact the police, and as I said in my talk, there's a number of options available.
One for Ellie Wild. Thank you for being on the panel, Ellie. Does ICE contribute to the increase in domestic violence?
Oh, hi, and thank you very much for having me first, and welcome to all the MPs, the senators, the mayors, and all you people out there. The theatre's full, and hello to the other 200 people out the back. So, you might be wondering why I'm sitting here talking about domestic violence when this is a forum about drug use. What we've seen over the past year is a lot of clients taking ice. That wasn't the case previously. Yes, there is drug use around the Riverland, but we've seen an increase in the use of ice. That has a devastating effect on families, and we see it every day now. We've seen, I guess most of the talk is about adults taking ice, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the children that are affected if parents are taking ice. So we've seen children going to school without shoes. We see them without jumpers in this cold weather. They don't have many clothes to wear. We've seen them come to our door and asking for food. And that's children who are really desperate. They even hide food. When they're on our property, they hide food because they know there might not be any for dinner. So I guess individuals who take ice that are experiencing domestic violence, of course they're looking for something to feel better, because domestic violence lowers self-esteem and confidence quite drastically, and they're frightened of their partners, and if their partners are taking drugs, we know that any violence and abuse that the victims are feeling is going to be a greater extent. The injuries are more devastating. We're seeing a lot of families referred to what we call the family safety framework, and that's a lot of services sitting around a table discussing high-risk clients, and that is more and more. I think it's really devastating, and you as a community, I'd like to see you all as our agents of change. Like the good doctor said, don't judge people who take ice. They're taking it for a reason. It's like, I guess a lot of youth wouldn't have left their home if it was a warm, loving home. It's usually because domestic violence is there. There's always a reason, so don't judge them. They do need you just to be there. As long as you're there as a positive role model and you get the word out. I mean, you look at all the ingredients of ice. To me, it's like taking poison. Can any of you imagine taking poison every day? You're killing yourselves. You're destroying your brain cells. You're destroying your bodies, but you're destroying your families. We've seen a lot of people, we're now having contact with parents of clients that we've never had before. They're concerned about their children, they're concerned about their grandchildren. We're seeing a lot of child neglect. Now, we are all responsible community members, and we need to look after people who are taking drugs. It's a hard thing to ask, I know, but I think if you put those people down and you just curse them, you push them aside and think they're rubbish, well, they're not. They're human beings, and we need to help them in some way. In whatever way you feel comfortable in doing that, I urge you all to do that.
Ellie, I've got another question along those lines, which I thought I might put to Dr. Sarath Atanayaka, the resident psychiatrist for the Riverland Integrated Mental Health Service. And the question is, what do you do if you come into contact with someone who is on ice and is agitated from the drug? Do you run for your life, or do you try and calm them down?
Well, it depends on the situation and the individual. So, are you talking about in the sort of community or in the hospital setting? Or?
I think that the person is just saying, in the community setting. But maybe there are some practices that you use in the hospital setting that might be of assistance.
I think the best thing is, as George was saying, without becoming judgmental, we need to sort of listen to him and see what we can do for him. So look for, if you know that it is ice, the person is using ice or any other drug, so it's a matter of making a quick judgment how we can do quickly for him or her to be supported. So before we go for mental health or aggression or violence, that kind of things, anxiety, depression, psychosis, we need to look at his physical state. That's the most important thing, because a patient can be at risk of even dying. So if you feel like this person is heavily sort of using, and also this person is at risk of physical risk, it's a quick emergency call for him to be taken to medical attention. That is the first thing. Otherwise, in regard to the behavior problems, we need to maybe get somebody to also to get somebody's help. If it is in the community, maybe because the person can be hallucinating, patient can be very paranoid. So the patient can be at risk to himself as well as to the others. So it has to be tackled very carefully while we are also sort of listening to him, asking him why, what's happening. So you would be able to maybe guess whether this person is psychotic or not by looking at him. For example, he may be not talking senseless. Talking not in a sensible manner. So that's one thing. Speech can be disorganized, and behavior can be restless, aggressive, and very, very disorganized, and can be responding to stimuli, for example, to voices and any other visual hallucinations we call. So depending on those, again, it is again, if that severe, it is again medical attention where the person has to be brought to the emergency. But if it is not that severe, then again the person can be talked down and taken to listen to, and then taken to either GP or any other person. So that's from sort of a physical. Sort of a psychological point of view.
Yeah. Okay, and we've had, the questions are coming through thick and fast, so it's very hard to keep up with them all, but somebody has mentioned that they are very disappointed that we don't have an ambulance person to speak on the panel tonight as well, and also perhaps another one for David. This is in relation to the comment that you made before, Sergeant. You said South Australia has the highest use in the world. Do you have any thoughts on the reason for the high usage comparative to other states?
No, I can't give any opinion on why it may be. Just certainly last time I heard the statistics, it was around 2%, which is up there in the world rankings. As to why, I couldn't answer that, I'm afraid.
And somebody else wants to know if the ambulance is called for somebody who is having an overdose on ice, whether or not police are called as a matter of course.
Yes, they would be. Certainly, if someone is overdosing or experiencing psychosis from ice, and the ambulance officers are afraid for their safety, they will call police. People should be reassured that if someone is overdosing on ice, the police won't be called to prosecute that person or arrest them for using ice.
Okay.
We should be clear, we're not concerned in arresting users. We want to help people, educate them, divert them. If someone is having an overdose, we will be called for safety, not to apprehend people.
One for Superintendent James Blandford. How are police patrolling ICE in the Riverland, i.e. at nightclubs, etc.? It's out there, you hear people talking about it.
Yeah, look, drugs have unfortunately, drugs and alcohol misuse has unfortunately been in our society for a long time. Methamphetamines or ice is just the current manifestation that is affecting our community severely. Look, police have a constant 24-hour presence in your community. We patrol licensed premises and clubs. We have legislative capability of actually putting passive alert drug dogs through licensed premises, and that does occur from time to time. We have specialist resources that are available to us, like serious and organised crime, licensing enforcement branch, who were only in the Riverland within the last fortnight in licensed premises and clubs. And of course, we rely heavily on the community actually making those phone calls when things are happening at the time on 131 444, or if they have information that can help us piece together crime and drug crime in particular through Crime Stoppers, 1800 333 000. At the end of the day, we will not enforce our way out of this problem. You can, if you want to pay the taxes, ask your politicians to triple the size of your police force, and I will keep them all very, very busy, but we won't enforce a solution. We will educate and we will prevent a solution by changing the culture and the mindset of our community, who truly believe that they need an illicit substance or some foreign substance in their system to make them feel better about themselves and about living. And that's something we have to fix as a community.
Okay. I think we'll go to Dr. George with this one. There's been a lot said about recognising the signs of an ICE user. However, sorry, George, no, this one for you. What is the chance of an overdose first time or any time?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Signs of an overdose?
Yeah, what are the chances of an overdose?
Well, especially because users are not certain of what kind of purity the drug has. And that's, I guess, the most important. And it varies from time to time of use. And that's one of the most important factors, I guess, that people can misjudge, and they think they might be using something exactly the same that they used last week, but it might be 10 times more potent, and that can result in an overdose.
Okay, and if I can also direct one to Dr. Sarath Atanaika as well. Have hospital presentations actually increased in the Riverland? We know it's used, but are we only hearing about the dramatic presentations like the ones shown on the television adverts?
Yeah, I agree. We see a lot of presentations to mental health with ramifications or complications of ICE use. They present with psychosis mainly. Sometimes they present with, when they are coming down, they present with depression and anxiety, but mainly psychosis, very erratic, disorganized, and I think sometimes they have the mental health or mental illness as a additional problem. For example, a person with schizophrenia also can use, which is very common. So people with mental illness, they self-medicate with drugs, and ICE now has become a major problem. So we see the problems together, which we call comorbidity, and also now and then we see just drug use alone. Of course, it is again complicated with a lot of other psychosocial vulnerabilities, personality difficulties, and so forth. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Well, they're not my questions, but I think so. Yeah, they're coming through very fast. And Ellie Wild, we have a lot that are based around what treatment options are available in the Riverland region. Are you happy to tackle that one?
I think it's mainly drug and alcohol. Sorry.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Look, the services, integrated services and treatment for drug and alcohol service, as you know, it is a separate service, which is drug and alcohol service. So, as mental health service in the local area, we don't have, we are not equipped to deal with drug and alcohol problems, including ICE. However, we advise, we do a lot of consultations with, in collaboration with the local GPs who are very skilled in this area, and also with DASA. We work together with DASA, but when they come with, for example, psychosis, we can treat them for a shorter period, but we are not resourced enough or skilled enough or equipped enough to sort of treat them long term. But we treat them, and but we still have a sort of an integrative approach with regard to their substance abuse and mental illness when they have both. But we don't deal only substance.
Okay, and
Can I
Ellie,
interrupt?
just about some treatment options.
I'd just like to interrupt there to just say that if our community, which is you, if you feel there's not enough resources in the Riverland to look at this problem in terms of drug and alcohol workers who are qualified to deal with the issue, then you should write to your local MPs. Treatment options for domestic violence, you mean?
We're looking for information on family support. People are
Family
asking
support.
what support is available for families affected, and also for users, what types of services are available for them.
For domestic violence, our service, the Riverland Domestic Violence Service, is funded by federal and state governments to provide services for women and children. There are other services out there like Life Without Barriers and Relationships Australia and AC Care. They're key service providers for families as well. If anyone wants to look at dealing with their ICE addiction, then the first stop would be, I imagine, your local GP to get referred to a drug and alcohol service. And we've seen lots of cases where ICE users have become psychotic and they get extra strength, and so members of the public shouldn't try and assist people themselves when they're like that. You should do as the doctor says, call for an ambulance to help them, but always be there. So there are services out there, but there's no specialist services as such except for a drug and alcohol worker, and like the doctor here said, that the Riverland is under-resourced in that area.
Thank you. And I think earlier on in one of the presentations that we saw, there was some details about some services in the region. There is, thank you, Chrissy, the Aboriginal Sobriety Group, also Drug and Alcohol Services South Australia, Headspace in Berry as well, and there's the new group, the Family Drug Support Group as well. So a lot of these organisations have a stand out the front. They have information to give to people who have come along to the forum. For those who are listening to this online, there are some details on the internet as well about those different places that you can go. What is being done to spread this information to all schools in the Riverland?
As a local service area, I'm blessed with having a crime prevention section, both based here in Berry and also at Murray Bridge, and run by a Sergeant of Police, Karen Newman. In the Riverland, you have two fantastic officers, Chris Evans and Paul Wood, who are actively involved in distributing and working with schools and sporting clubs to actually talk about the harms of substance misuse, about violence, about talking about party-wise, having parties and keeping themselves and their families safe. So there's a range of education prevention products that we can deliver in conjunction with a whole swag of other community and government and non-government agencies who are more than happy to come and talk to schools, community groups, sporting clubs, or anybody that just wants to know or hear about information, so they can join us in trying to educate and prevent.
Thank you very much. And another question, how long does ice stay in your system for to our medics? Yeah.
It depends on the route of administration. If it is intravenous, it's a bit quicker, but generally it's 3 to 5 days.
5 days?
3 to 5 days.
3 to 5 days, okay. And sorry, the questions keep coming through, and every time they come through, it takes me down to the bottom of it. There was another question about the percentage of crime that's related to ice compared to alcohol, and whether or not we have any statistics on that. I think the sentiment to the question was that it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, that perhaps alcohol is more of a problem than what ice is in our communities.
In relation to alcohol, obviously it is a big issue for...
Yeah, sorry if you could just... Thanks, Tony.
Obviously alcohol is a big issue for the community because it does have a lot of effects and a lot of people use it. However, ice is a very... issue by itself causes a lot of problems because people don't know what they're taking. They have got no idea about the quality, what is actually in it. There have been instances where people have purchased ecstasy, the tablets, thinking that it was ecstasy, where in fact it was meth. You've got no idea what you are taking. There is no quality control. And as a result, it has a very wide range of effects on people, as has been discussed. It's important that in relation to crime, we don't have statistics that actually delineate between drug-induced crime and alcohol, but obviously we've seen that Australia's talking about it. There's been task forces such as the ICE task force, which has been run by the Commonwealth Government, which is now looking at ICE and the issue in respect to why across Australia and options that are available. But also there's the alcohol issue, which is a very big problem. So it's important that as a community we talk about all issues, because the more we're informed, the more we're able to make some decisions about how it affects us, our families and our community. So it's important for us, at least to start off with, to talk about this issue of ice. It causes a lot of problems for us. We've seen the results, especially from policing and with ambulance and with hospitals, and the doctors would know about the change in behaviours, because it's unpredictable.
And David, I think this was part of your presentation, penalties for dealing, cooking and using ice.
Really ranges, the legislation is set into amounts, so penalties range from 10 years imprisonment up to a certain amount, 25 years imprisonment up to a certain amount, or life imprisonment. So trafficking is 10 years, trafficking in a commercial quantity, which is 100 grams of meth, is 25 years, and trafficking in a large commercial quantity, which is 1 kilogram, I think, or more, is life imprisonment. And same goes for manufacture. Manufacturing, intending for it to be sold, life imprisonment for a large commercial quantity.
There are known drug houses around the Riverland, but it seems that nothing seems to be done about it, and it continues to go on, is an SMS that's come through. James Blandford?
Yeah, look, I'm quite sure the community know where things are going on that would raise an eyebrow of suspicion or is known. If you know about it, we probably know about it, but it wouldn't hurt for you to make a phone call to us to make sure that we know about it. And drug investigations, when they occur, are long-term, arduous investigations where it would appear that we're not doing much at all, but at the end of a 2 or 3 year operation, suddenly there are results. I guess the issue that we face is as quickly as we take down one syndicate, another one seems to pop up again, because we can't enforce you out of this problem. You need, as a community, to change your attitudes and your demeanour towards drug, alcohol and substance misuse, and create an intolerance and a lack of desire to actually use a product.
I suppose just going on top of what James has said is that police certainly receive a lot of information, and we have certain requirements that to enforce certain requirements in relation to search warrants or whatever. We have to have a threshold to get over so that we don't target the wrong people. Someone may have given incorrect information or whatever. So we do require people to come through and provide us information. We will assess it, look at it. It may correlate to something else that received, or it may be the little brick in the wall that we need to get a search warrant or whatever to go through the house. So every little bit of information helps. And that's why we're always asking for people to come forward. If you know something, say something.
Just lots of comments coming through on SMS as well, including, interesting, we can spend 1,000 on ads telling us about ICE. Perhaps it would be better spent on professional services. This is in relation to Ellie's comment about, perhaps a need for more services in the Riverland area. Has anybody got a question from the floor? Okay, yeah, my apologies, sorry, yes, that'd be great. Daniel's just getting the mic to you now.
Couple of points I picked up on. It seems to me that you're saying it's all about, a lot of it's to do with broken families and that sort of thing, and marital non-blissful, whatever you want to call it. I know a lot of good families that are going through this, and it's creating all sorts of dramas, and they've got loving parents, and they've got parents who'll support them, and they bend over backwards for them, but they get lied, cheated to, and stolen from, and Christ knows what else. And you're saying that, turn the other cheek and support them. Well, it's happening. People are doing it now, but it ain't getting any better. As for the police, support you blokes 100%, but the grunts on the ground take the information back and nothing happens about it. And you can say it takes years, and I know it does. I can name half a dozen that have been looked at for the last 5 years, low-life scumbags, and they're still out there. It's bullshit. And what about the politicians? If you're sitting down there, how about fixing the court system where these low-life bastards get off?
Okay, thank you. Daniel, we've got another question down here. Sandy's got a question. If you've got a question, it is hard for me to see. Put your hand up so I know where I'm going to next.
Sorry, I'll just go on the comment on. And there was a good comment that was made in respect to nobody is immune to this. It doesn't matter whether you're in what socio-economic group within society. People take drugs for different reasons, different issues, but it affects everybody. So, that's the thing that we think about. If we sit there and go, it only happens to the people that are poor or whatever. No, it doesn't. It happens right across the board. You can come, as was said, from a loving family, and your child or someone within your family can be using. Everybody's got their own particular reason, but we've got to be there to help them to get over this, because it does affect the whole family. So we're working as hard as we can. We do rely on information. The information that comes through gets analysed and assessed, and gets filtered. Sometimes it comes through to Adelaide, to my branch, if it's major, and we do major investigations. They're not easy, but I've got a dedicated team, along with everybody else within SAPOL, working to try and, from a practical point of view, arrest these offenders that are manufacturing and dealing in drugs.
It's the system. Well, yeah, look, there's a lot of frustration with the system, all right? And
we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you. Sandy, you have a question?
Okay, I have two very short questions. Okay. Firstly, obviously there are a lot of backyard labs, and secondly, that's the biggest problem. But being the amount of ice and drugs that's being taken in the country, and you say it's overwhelming, where offshore is this ice coming from? Because I firmly do not believe that it's all made and manufactured in Australia. It has to be coming from somewhere. And what is our customs doing to prevent it coming in through the obvious stores?
You're 100% spot on.
David, just a little closer, thank you.
You're spot on. Not all of the ice is being made in Australia, in South Australia. A lot of it is being imported, and the internet has been huge for people anonymously importing drugs, importing glassware, importing contraband. A lot of the gear we see is coming from China, from West Africa, a lot from Europe. And as far as what customs are doing, I can guarantee customs are working 24 hours a day, analysing as many packages as they can. By no means do they get all of them. Some does come through, but they do intercept a lot of drugs, multi-kilogram quantities almost every day. It's just the pure volume of the market, the consumer demands. People are just ordering way too much.
See, one of the issues these days is because of the internet, people can sit in their lounge room and order drugs across the internet and have it delivered to their home in small amounts. So, drug dealing can happen from your own lounge room, your own bedroom. Someone with a computer can access the internet, they can order drugs in. And some of these are large amounts and some are very small amounts. But we work with the Australian Border Force to identify possible people that are bringing them in. We've got a lot of intelligence and we do the best we can, but we require information from everybody, as I keep saying. So we'll keep trying, and we work with our partners in relation to the best try and make the community safe.
Do we have another question? Yes, over here.
Gentleman on the left of the panel alluded to the use of meth being across the social spectrum. Does the panel have any statistics on correlation between meth use and SES? Question one. And Dr. Delamagas, can you speak to the long-term effects on brain chemistry and specifically dopamine receptors?
Sorry, can you repeat the last question?
It was about the long-term effects on the brain and the dopamine receptors.
On brain and dopamine.
Yeah.
Well, as we said, the rush that it gives you when it releases all the dopamine after the use of ice, it depletes the dopamine as a hormone, and your brain gets kind of depleted from it, and you need more time, more dosage, more of the actual ice to get the same effect. I mean, Dr. Sarathul has more knowledge, I guess, into the scientific part of the brain and the dopamine, and I guess you can give us his opinion.
I think what you're saying is right. So it's not a long-term sort of brain damage as what alcohol does, but this is, as George was saying, when you're using dopamine, it is stimulating dopamine, but it also can deplete dopamine. So then when you stop, there will be a sort of a coming down symptoms, and then the person needs more and more things. So that's how it works. We call it reward pathway, where your brain is actually keeping you to take it again and again. So that's a chemical thing. I think this is really important because we are talking about a lot of prevention of ice use by using law enforcement authorities, but there's a big part of prevention by knowing facts. That's what we are doing, I think.
Yes.
I think we were talking about education. That's so important than anything else, because person should know the effects, because we saw these stories. A lot of people didn't know about ice, so that's why they started using. Then they become addicted, so their life became sort of misery. So I think the more important thing is prevention than treatment. So for that, I think most important thing is for us to have this kind of forums, and schools are the best target. So children should be taught about this as a very important part of their educational curriculum. That's my...
I have a related question that was sent through for you as well, Sarath, which is how long does it take to get clean? They're talking about the rehab process. Is it months? Is it years?
No, it's quicker. When it comes to stimulants such as ice, it is quicker. So the detoxification can be done soon. And there are no specific, there was a question about treatment as well.
Yeah.
There's no specific medications for treating ice withdrawal like in alcohol or heroin. So it is just symptomatic treatment. We treat for symptoms using maybe benzodiazepines like Valium type medications, or maybe some olanzapine type medications to calm the patient down, relax, and things like that. So its withdrawal can be quicker, maybe week maybe depending on the use and the quantities, maybe it can't be beyond 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's hard. A lot of these questions, there's obviously just no one answer, is there?
Yeah.
Daniel, did you have someone there that wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, my question is directed at probably James Blandford. I'm just wondering about drug testing roadside, how often that occurs. Obviously, it would be very helpful in catching drug offenders, so I was just wondering how often that does occur.
Roadside testing is not actually set up to catch drug offenders. It's a road safety strategy to drive a test for drugs and alcohol. The drug testing part of, we're all used to random breath testing for alcohol. The drug testing side is still fairly new science, so it's a relatively expensive process to go through. It's quite time consuming, but we in this state have a very rigid routine and protocol to make sure that the testing is accurate and hygienic and safe for everybody. So only traffic or highway patrol members are actually trained to do the drug testing, and to actually, because there's actually 2 tests involved. One roadside, basically it's a lick stick, and then if that shows positive, then they have to go and actually suck on a stick for sometimes anything up to an hour if they test positive for amphetamine, which is then put into another machine and analysed, and then sent off to forensic science for further analysis. So it's actually quite a complex process. And why we do that is for road safety, because drug driving is dangerous. It's bad for that road user and everybody else. But what we were able to do through roadside testing is get a bit of an appreciation of the volume or percentage of drug use in the community who then go off and drive. And certainly what we're finding in our drug testing is we are getting more and more positive hits for cannabis, certainly for methamphetamine. I guess worryingly, we're getting triple hits. So they've used cannabis, methamphetamine and ecstasy. And that's a worry.
Sorry, Superintendent. Tori has a question up there.
I'm not sure who this would be directed at, but when police attend a incident that's obviously involving somebody on drugs or ice, then why aren't the police given allowed to have more authority to put those people into hospital under some sort of order to later be taken down to Adelaide, maybe even to Glenside, to be assessed and or reassessed, whatever the need may be at that time, for the police to have that authority to put them in and say they are in a dangerous situation and put some sort of order on them.
Yeah.
And I have another question.
Can I answer the first one first?
Yeah.
Otherwise we'll get confused, or I will anyway. Look, we live in a democratic free country called Australia, which is, and your police by consent of you, the community. We don't have our authorities, we don't have our powers, because we're the police and we want them. It's because you consent to our government, our parliament, passing legislation that gives us authorities to actually protect you. So I don't know that we want the police to have these arbitrary powers of detention because you're a drug user. We certainly have authorities under the Mental Health Act that if you are behaving in a manner where you're a danger to yourself or others, we have the power to detain you and take you to a hospital where qualified medical professionals can assess you and potentially do a detention order for a period of time so people can get help. I don't think it's for us as the police to make a determination that people should be restrained and held indefinitely and shipped off to Glenside because that's what we think. The process is there, the process is fair, it protects the individuals, it protects the community, it stands up to the rule of law in Australia, and certainly South Australia, where we police by your consent.
You have another
Well,
question?
I was actually involved in an incident and asked the police to take the person to hospital and that he needed to be assessed, and I was also told that unless he was a threat to himself or others, they weren't able to do that, but he'd actually just assaulted me. So that didn't happen. He got locked up for the night and obviously went to court the next day.
Because he got arrested for a criminal offence.
Yes. My other question was, whether it be your children or whoever it may be you're helping out on this ice, we put them into hospital or we take them down to Warranilla. They do their stint down there, they get clean. If they haven't got family to go back to, there is no long-term rehab here at all. The only one I know of is the Woolshed at Strathalbyn, which has a minimum 12-week wait to get in. In the meantime, they've gotten clean, they've been released, whether it be from hospital or Warranilla. We take them back as families. We have to keep an eye on them 24/7. There is nowhere else for them to go if we don't keep our eye on them, or they meet up with a friend that they used to use with, when they could be actually going from a short rehab to long term, which we have nothing at all here.
I've been asked as well to give out the number for DASA, which is 1300 131 340. Daniel, I know you had somebody over that way that has a question for the panel.
It was pointed out earlier that the driving force behind ice use is profit. It worries me that almost every time there's a drug bust and it's reported in the media, it's blazoned right there up front about how valuable these drugs were. And it seems to me that's just pointing out to potential manufacturers, there's money to be made in making these and marketing these drugs. Is there any way we can stop that and rather report the potential damage of these drugs rather than how much money could be made from them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's probably a way of putting in perspective, what the seizure was, because we part of confiscation of crime. We look at the assets of these criminals, and many of them have been able to make a lot of money out of them, so we certainly seize those or put orders for the court seeking to have them seized. There are certainly, I suppose it's about putting in perspective in that, people get involved in the drug trade, as I said, because of profit, and they already know that. But it's about at least telling people, this how big a seizure. Sometimes they're talked about, how many street deals, whatever, that's been taken away, but it certainly puts in perspective how big the seizures were. In respect to how we can report them differently, well, that's something we can consider and look at.
Sorry, another question that's come through on the text message. Is it true that weed is now being laced with ice as a way of getting people addicted to a stronger drug? Are the police coming across that?
Did you say weed?
Yeah, as in marijuana.
No, haven't heard of that.
Haven't heard of that? Anybody else on the panel heard of that, or is that a myth?
Not aware of that at all, but obviously, there is certainly, if any information, we require that to come forward and we'll investigate it. And certainly if it's a public warning, then we can put that out.
Has anybody else got a question from the floor? We're going to take just a couple more questions and then we're going to play the final of our videos.
Is that money going back into community services, or is it victims of crime funding?
So what happens to proceeds of crime?
Victims of crime fund.
There we go. That was a very easy one, wasn't it? There was one here for James Blandford, just a quick one, and this is about could we put sniffer dogs at Yamba Fruit Fly Station, and would that assist the problem?
Well, yes, we can. as I say, our dog operations unit has a number of trained passive alert dogs, generally Labradors, who are trained to detect powders, so amphetamines, heroin, cocaine, and obviously cannabis. Almost every dog can smell cannabis, it's that strong. We have legislation which gives us the authority to set up what is called a drug transit route, so we can actually make that 5 square kilometres, and we can actually stop vehicles and actually let the dog go through the vehicle simply by virtue of them driving down the road, and the dog detects that there are drugs, and we can search, and we use that extensively across the state. In my previous life in the far north and Whyalla, we were running running drug transit routes regularly on the Lincoln Highway and Stewart Highway. We do use the drug transit routes on the Sturt Highway, and we have set up at Yamba. So we do it. We're limited, of course, how many we can do because of the number of dogs, and the legislation that currently says we can only have 3 going at any one time. So there's obviously a big call for the resources, but we use it with intelligence, and that intelligence, a lot of that intelligence, comes from community information.
And just a couple of questions for Sarath. People don't avoid the question on why people use it. In your experience, I imagine that the reasons are quite varied.
Yes, this is biological, psychological, social, and cultural. So those are the main sort of drives for people to use. I don't think I have time to explain. Biological, maybe familial, maybe some people are genetically they're having addictive personality and so forth.
If only there were one answer, it would be easy, wouldn't it?
Yep.
And the other thing is, somebody's asking, are some people more susceptible to getting addicted than others?
That's again due to these reasons. Some are genetically having addictive sort of nature. That's really strong for some people, and due to their personality, and also due to the other psychological, social and cultural aspects. For example, availability. So yes, that's I think mainly genetic made they have is that some are more addictive than others.
Okay. I think, our panel may be able to answer your questions one-on-one. They may make themselves available afterwards. We had more than 100 questions on the SMS, so my apologies that we just simply couldn't get to them all. Thanks to the panel, and that concludes our discussion there. Can I remind you also, before everybody leaves, I can see people starting to leave, that there is a feedback form for you to fill out and give us some input into your thoughts on tonight's forum. That's really important part of it. And before I officially close the forum, here's one final message from our survivors. You guys stay there.
Don't do it. It's not worth it. It really isn't. If you need something to make you feel better, go do something. I think my biggest thing is Dad's always taught me, look at the world around you, because that's what you need, I sit down at the river nowadays and I look up at the stars and think, people in the cities don't get this. No, and if they came here, they probably wouldn't appreciate it. You can lie there and just see every star in the world. If you're not happy about something, go sit somewhere and vent. So I'm sort of trying to target this towards younger kids, kids that are out there and get peer pressured. Don't get peer pressured, because it could be the difference between you being a kid, 10 years down the track, sick and continuously wanting it, or you could be that kid that said no and their life just takes off. And not to say that it will ruin your life and you won't take off, but you always want that in your life. So.
And what do you want to study at uni?
I'm not too sure. Something to do with helping people get off meth. I would love to just get rid of the meth off. I just wish there was no more ice. It just destroys people's life, and they don't care. They don't realise people care about them. I was thinking about it a lot, but I don't know. It's just young people. It's all to do with the young people, so. And someone's got to give it to them the first time. So it's just those people that are giving it to someone the first time they know it's their first time, but just make sure who you're selling it to is like is old enough to be able to make a choice for themselves, like at least not sell it to a young person that's like just doesn't even know what a regular life is, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the end of our videos. The feedback form is underneath your seat, if you could fill it out for us. And I wanted to thank our panel, so Detective Chief Inspector Tony Cremieri, Detective Brevet Sergeant David Fay, Superintendent James Blandford, Sarath Atanayaka, resident psychiatrist at the Riverland Integrated Mental Health Service, Dr George Delamargas from the Berry Medical Clinic, and also Ellie Wild. My thanks to you as well from the Murray Lands Domestic Violence Service. And I have some final thank yous to some people for bringing this forum together. The financial sponsors, the Renmark Paringa Council, the Berry Barmera Council, District Council of Loxton Waikerie, Lions Club of the Riverland, the Riverland Mallee Youth Sector Network, who received funding from the Office of Youth, River Docs Emergency Department, the Murray Pioneer as well. And of course, it wouldn't have been possible without the hard work of the Riverland Regional Health Service, Renmark Paringa Council, SAPOL, Drug and Alcohol Services South Australia, ABC Riverland, and to also Tim Whetstone, who provided some admin support. So on behalf of all of those groups, I'd also like to thank the Riverland Community Services Alliance and the agencies that are active in it who have supported the forum. It's a result of the working group Project ICE Riverland, which is an initiative of the Riverland Community Services Alliance. It's made up of government and non-government agencies based in the Riverland. Its aim is to promote, advocate and enhance positive social outcomes for the Riverland community. And of course, my thanks to you as well, and to our distinguished guests also for coming along. And please, there's some light refreshments outside as well that you can enjoy. Thank you.